Hello Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazersedge.com videocast. Buckle your seatbelts, check your pulse rates. It is draft week, the most exciting week of the summer, and you know Blazers Edge has you covered all the way through the big day. I am Dave Deckard from Blazersedge.com, and I'm delighted to be with you. Let's get to all of your draft questions right now. Dave, I'm uncertain which way the Blazers should go this summer, mainly because of this draft. It's deep in talent, but there's no one player that stands out to me as the next star player and #1 team option. It's full of players with flaws in their game currently who might not develop, and players who will be very productive from the start, but probably won't grow into superstars. Even the projected first pick might not ever be a team's first option on offense. Thoughts? Tyson, I believe that's an accurate assessment. You have guys in this draft who are pretty solid all around, but who probably don't have a lot of upside, and you have guys who have a ton of potential, but have serious holes in their game. That means drafting high, the Blazers are probably going to have to look not just at strengths, but at which players' weaknesses they can best compensate for. They can either have solid or tantalizing, not both. Dave, do you think we should draft Bradley Beal? Can he be our Kyrie Irving? Or are we better suited selecting a veteran point guard from the free agent pool? Justin. The best assets for Bradley Beal are two: his jump shot and his confidence. That's why he's a lottery pick. The big question that goes along with Beal is his athleticism. He doesn't have an explosive first step. He doesn't have a great dribble. He doesn't have a lot of escapability for a shooting guard. That makes you wonder if he's going to be able to get off his shot cleanly in the NBA, and whether that in turn will affect his vaunted confidence. I don't see him being anything like a Kyrie Irving. I don't think he has the point guard ability or the ball handling ability or the court sense to do the things that Irving does. I think there's a greater risk of him becoming a jump shooting specialist. Now that's fine if that's what you want, but boy, when you're drafting this high in the lottery, you certainly hope for a little more than that. That makes Beal a big risk, and if I were the Blazers, I would stay away from him. Dave, do you see the Blazers moving up in this draft? Would it be worth it? And what moves are the most likely? Len, I don't see the Blazers moving up from the 6th position. The cost would be too high compared to the increase in talent that they'd receive. Now granted, there's a little drop-off at number 6. You're taking more of a risk, but the players from 2 to 5 aren't guarantees either. And unless the Blazers are really enamored with one of them, I don't see them mortgaging the farm in order to get one. Now I can see them easily moving up from number 11. Golden State at number 7, Toronto at number 8 are both possibilities. Sacramento at number 5 might be if they could get the right kind of deal going. I could see the Blazers purchasing or trading for some mid-round picks, either to facilitate that kind of trade or to select a third player if they think the talent pool is deep enough. All of those are possibilities. I think it's a good chance that the Blazers do make a move. I just don't see it being from 6 on up. I think they're going to go for that second and third player that they like in this relatively deep draft. And folks, we have a late edition question from Phil, which we didn't have time to get to our graphics department, but we did want to share because it's topical, so I'll read it to you now. Phil writes, "Dear Dave, I've watched the draft coverage for more than a month now, and I think our analysis has been pretty good. But as I've done so, I've been reminded that professional NBA guys do this for a living and do nothing else. Therefore, their analysis should be exponentially better. If that is so, how come so many teams mess up in the draft?" Well, Phil, you have to remember it's not an exact science. Obviously, it's always a crapshoot. You don't know how a player is going to develop. You don't know how deep the talent pool is going to be. But, you know, we do have empathy for your question, and we wanted to give it due credence. And so, in honor of Draft Week, we are going to give you yet another peek into the life of an NBA front office with a segment that we like to call
Men in Suits Doing Stuff.
Yeah, we've got them gathered now. I think we should organize them so we're all prepared when the boss gets here. For instance, this one right here, this is quick, slick, dodgy. It screams to me, new breed power forward. This is a power forward hat.
Yes, I like it. And this one over here, this would be good for a point guard. It adds height.
Oh, yeah, gotcha, sure. Oh, this one. Indiana Jones, like the whip, the lightning quick drive, you know. It's a small forward hat, I think. Small forward down the lane.
Yes, indeed. And this is just a classic gangster hat for a shooting guard.
Yep, precisely. You know, we have got this down cold. We are ready. Perhaps, though, we ought to check the memo one more time just to make sure nothing goes wrong. Where'd you put it?
I left it over there.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Here we go. All right. Gentlemen, you two will compile Oh. Yeah, look at that.
That's not what we thought it said.
No, it's not. Although, in retrospect, that does make more sense. How long till the boss gets here?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Yeah, we're dead.
Again.
Maybe we can use these for disguise purposes? Yeah, I'm Indiana Jones. Out of my way. Yeah. Dave, in a recent article about Andre Drummond, you state the only way for the Blazers to obtain a quality center is to draft one. What about the possibility of restricted and unrestricted free agents? I've heard rumors about Chris Kaman, whose price seems a little steep and has a history of injuries. But what about restricted free agents such as Roy Hibbert or JaVale McGee? Are any of these practical? George. Well, we've talked about Hibbert before here. The Blazers would go gaga in order to get him, but Hibbert is a restricted free agent, and Portland simply can't offer enough money to make Indiana let him go, so you can forget about him. The Blazers might be able to get JaVale McGee if they made a big enough offer. But then you've made a big offer for a guy who is a bit of a head case, who plays intermittently, and whose game has holes anyway. I'm not sure that that is going to be worth the price. Chris Kaman is an unrestricted free agent and probably could be had. The question is, how much money do you have to pay for him? He is 30 years old. He's had a long history of injuries, including in both of the last 2 seasons. His game is probably on the decline. The thing you love most about him probably is his rebounding. But how much do you want to pay for a 7-footer on whom you rely mostly for rebounding? Could you get a younger, cheaper player to do that and spend your money more efficiently elsewhere? I think if Kaman or McGee could be had very cheaply, they'd certainly be worth a look for the Blazers. But I don't think that's going to happen for either. And I think the Blazers are probably going to have to solve their center problem elsewhere, because either one would simply be a temporary solution. Dave, with the direction of the league and the rules, just how important is it to have a big, strong center? With so many stars being adept at getting to the rim or the foul line, would a 7-foot giant really stop a guy like LeBron or Westbrook, or just rack up 5 fouls and plod to the bench? If you could draft a long center or an attacking guard or forward, which do you think would be more successful? Jonathan. Well, that depends a little bit on the quality of the player, doesn't it? It's true that in general, hand-checking rules and the star system favor wing players in the league. It's harder to get calls as a big. It's harder to connect with the masses to become that transcendent superstar when you are different than everyone else, when you are 7 feet tall. But being different than everybody else gives you an advantage that nobody else can match. And when a player who's that big is also good, he can bend the game to his will every single night. Witness a Dwight Howard, who is surrounded by fairly mediocre players, but still keeps his team in the game every night and still keeps his team in the playoffs every single year. If you can get a guy like that who is big and gifted, you need to go ahead and go for it. The guy you got to watch out for that's not as valuable as he was in the 80s or 90s is the 7-foot stiff who has size but is slower, who just goes out there to get some rebounds. He can't keep up with a new breed NBA big. But boy, if you have a guy who is tall and can play, that's still your best bet for a matchup that nobody else can deal with.
Dave, your assessment of the pluses and minuses of each player potentially available for the Blazers at number 6 makes it hard to tell which one would be the best option. Do you have a favorite? Which guy do you think has the greatest chance of becoming a star for the Blazers? Whose pluses outweigh their minuses the most? Signed, Tim.
Well, there are a lot of ways that you could go with this question. If you're asking my personal favorite in terms of excitement, it's probably Perry Jones III. That guy is a combination of height and skill and wonder and potential. It would be amazing to see him develop as a trailblazer. You'd never have a dull moment. If you're talking about ultimate impact and ultimate ceiling, then you have to look at Andre Drummond. If you're talking about a guy who has great potential who's likely to meet it, you look at Harrison Barnes, obviously Thomas Robinson, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. They will be there also, but they're not likely to be there with the Blazers' 6th pick. But if you want the combination of strengths the Blazers would love and weaknesses they can compensate for, then you look no further than Damian Lillard. What are his strengths? He's everything offensively that the Blazers have missed in a point guard in recent years. He can drive. He can dribble with either hand. He has an explosive first step. He can score in the lane. He can also shoot. He can score off screens. He can score off the catch and shoot. He has great range. He's a scorer. Everything that they needed, he provides. What are his weaknesses? Well, defense is a huge one, but the Blazers have Wesley Matthews and Nicholas Batum as wing defenders, meaning that they can compensate for that. They say he's too much of a scorer and not enough of a point guard, but the Blazers need desperately a bona fide second scorer in the lineup. His passing ability is unproven, but what kind of passes is he going to have to make in his first couple years as a Blazer? You're probably talking about post-entry passes to Aldridge or dump-offs to Matthews or Batum on the wing. None of that is very difficult. They can coach along the rest of it. Some people want to hold being from Weber State against him. I don't. There have been plenty of Blazers from smaller schools who have made great impacts. Obviously, Jerome Kersey and Terry Porter are the first on the list, Scottie Pippen as well. You don't necessarily have to hold a guy's school against him. If he can play, he can play. So if you're talking about a guy the Blazers will covet that they can probably make really good use of, Lillard is your man.
And now more. Men in suits doing stuff. Doing stuff. Doing stuff. Doing stuff.
Yeah, I'd totally rather go out with a Victoria's Secret model. I mean, have you seen how they dress? They're already halfway where you want them to go, you know?
Well, sure, but they're only going to dress that way in private. I mean, if you look at the swimsuit models, they're just out there on the beach all the time. They will show you what they've got.
Yeah, but, you know, Victoria's Secret models, they got this rare thing going.
Nah, the swimsuit models are just hubba hubba.
But dude, the rare.
Hubba hubba.
Well, rare.
You two have never been on a date in your life, have you?
I took my cousin to prom once.
Dude, that counts.
You're pathetic.
Call me. I think she will, too.
Totally. Did you see the way she looked at you? She meant like pathetic sexy.
That's a thing?
That's totally a thing. It's a vibe some guys have, like sexy, pathetic, rare.
Hubba hubba.
Yeah. Well, folks, we got a ton of questions about the draft, too many really to use in the video cast, so we're going to do some quick hits now, questions that I answer in 2 sentences or less. So, Miranda, take it away.
Andre Drummond, worth the risk or not?
Yes, absolutely, not just because of his ceiling, but because you could potentially trade him.
Damian Lillard, number 6, number 11, or not at all?
I think at this point you take him wherever you can get him. I would hope that the Blazers could get him at number 11. If not, maybe they can trade up right under number 6 and steal him away.
Draft for need or best player available?
Always best player available, especially since the Blazers are desperately in need of talent.
Tyler Zeller, good investment?
No, not for the Blazers. He is a jack of all trades and a master of none, and his ceiling just isn't high enough.
Harrison Barnes falls to 6. Do you take him?
Absolutely, if I can get Lillard too.
Do the Blazers make a move beyond 6 and 11 in this draft?
You got to believe they will. They've been crafty in past drafts, and I think Paul Allen and company can manufacture at least one more draft pick to play with.
Dave, you're the GM. What moves do you make, and who do you draft? Rich.
Well, that right there is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And we're going to reveal this tonight on the site, but you VideoCast watchers are lucky you're going to get it a few hours early. The Blazers are in a tough spot in this draft, really. They need to hit a home run, and they cannot afford to strike out while doing so. Yet they're dealing with a talent pool in which all the home run players have questions about or holes in their games, whereas the only guys you're really sure of are the singles. Therefore, they're going to have to make a choice between extra bases and surety. To me, that choice is simple. You cannot hit a home run unless you swing for the fences, and it does you no good to be sure of what you've got if it's not really what you need. Therefore, I would favor the high-risk, high-reward players in this draft. 5 names come to mind: Andre Drummond, Damian Lillard, Dion Waiters, Perry Jones III, and possibly Myers Leonard. If the Blazers could get any 2 of those players, and I think they can, I'd be happy. If they could somehow finagle a 3rd draft pick and pick up 3 of them, I'd be over the moon. There's a chance that they could have revitalized their entire roster if all of them work out, but even if one doesn't, you still have a backup plan or 2. I think the Blazers need to go ahead and accept the risk, bite the bullet, and go for the highest possible gain here. For them, best player available means highest ceiling. Draft accordingly. And that, my friends, is our VideoCast for the week. We have enjoyed being with you. Tomorrow, we will know who the Blazers picked, at least for now, pending trades later in July. We'll be with you at Blazers Edge for that. Join us for our coverage. Until then, have a fantastic and anticipatory day. And as always, go Blazers.